When you're getting started in the gym, it can be so nerve-wracking and you don't want to look like a complete newbie in the gym. So stick around because in this video, I'm going to be telling you gym terms to know as well as the most important exercises so you can feel confident going in the gym and get the best results. If you're new here, hi, my name is Nicole. I'm a registered dietitian. I tell people the truth about nutrition and fitness to help reach their body composition goals. Now let's start with what type of split you should be doing for your workout and really how to get started with all that. So when someone is starting to lift, I usually recommend clients to do 3 full body workouts throughout a week. Primarily those workouts utilizing compound movements. Those are exercises that utilize multiple muscle groups in your body. So you're not just working one specific muscle group, but you're using multiple muscle groups at once. And that's going to give you the most bang for your buck. Now, training 3 days a week will help you to not only hit your whole body, but you're doing that multiple times a week, so you're going to get the best results from that. If you're interested in other ways to split your workouts, be sure to let me know in the comments and I'll do a feature video on that for you. Okay, let's start with some terminology that you're going to need to know in the gym before we start getting into some of those compound movements and how to structure your workouts. Okay, the first term would be called a warm-up. And a warm-up is simply doing a small amount of exercise in a short period of time to help get your blood flow going and your heart rate up. One of my favorite ways to do this is pretty much just going on the treadmill. And going on the treadmill, just walking, brisk walking for like 5 to 10 minutes is a really great way for me to warm up my body before I get into the movements. Okay, the next one that you need to know is called a repetition. And a repetition, it's also called a rep, is basically doing one exercise through the full range of motion. So for instance, if you're doing a bicep curl, right, you're gonna go all the way up and all the way down. That would be one full repetition. The next term that you're gonna need to know is called a set. And a set is basically a number of repetitions in a series. So let's say that you're doing the bicep curl, right? So if we're doing one repetition, let's say we're doing 8 reps for our set. So we would do 8 repetitions for those bicep curls, and then that would be one set. Now the other thing that you'll hear a lot of people say is like the rest that they will do between their movements. So rest just simply is a short period of time that you are resting between each set of that particular exercise. And that is to help your body to recuperate so that your muscles can then do that next set as best as it can. Typically a rest period is between 60 to 90 seconds for the majority of it. If you're doing very, very high weight for very low amount of reps, we can get into this in a future video, but essentially that would be a longer rest period. So that would be about, some people take upwards of 5 minutes. Okay, so now that you know some of those definitions or terms that you need to know, let's start getting into some of those exercises that I would recommend that you start doing. Even before we get into the exercises, I really want to strongly suggest that you start with a barbell for this movement. So practicing with a barbell first will help you to really master the techniques of these different exercises, and that will help to prevent injury and help you to just further gain your confidence in the gym. So if you are actually going to a gym that doesn't have a free weight barbell there, you might be going to Planet Fitness right now. So at Planet Fitness, what I suggest is instead of doing the dumbbells for these movements, start at the Smith rack. So the Smith rack will have a barbell on it. It is attached to that rack machine. It will help you to do these exercises with proper technique. And again, I want to emphasize that starting with these compound movements that we're about to get into is really important because compound movements are the crux or really the foundation of any exercise routine that you're going to be doing, any program you're going to be doing. So doing these and mastering them from the start is going to yield you the best results. Okay, the first compound exercise that you've probably heard of before is called a squat. And a squat is a fundamental compound exercise that primarily works your lower body. So it's going to be working your quads, your glutes, it's going to be working your hamstrings, all of that as your primary different muscle groups down there. With squat, there's a lot of different variations to it. So what I would suggest is to really just start with, okay, so in a squat, you're going to basically want your feet slightly wider than shoulder width apart. And essentially the movement, what you're going to be doing is you're going to unrack the bar, then you will slightly lower your hips back. You're going to be sinking them back in. While you're doing that, you're going to want your core engaged and your chest upright. Now, a cue that I like to tell my clients to kind of think about while they're doing a squat is pretend like there's a chair behind you and you're sitting, you're thinking about kind of squatting or sitting down into that chair. And that can really help to really cue you in onto your body and what you're supposed to be doing in that movement. And then basically you just reverse that movement back up to the top and then continue the repetitions. But the next compound exercise that we're going to be talking about is bench press. Now, a bench press is one of those core foundation movements for your chest, your triceps, and a little bit of your shoulders. Okay, so for our bench press, you're going to be lying down on a bench in your gym, and essentially you need to always keep your core engaged in this exercise. And what you're going to be doing is you would unrack that bar or the barbell, or if you're using dumbbells, then having the dumbbells up in front of you, and then you're going to breathe in, and then you're going to lower that bar down slowly to about the midline of your chest, and then back up for the rest of your repetitions. Okay, so the next compound movement we're going to be talking about is called the barbell row, and this is one of my favorites. So with the barbell row, basically you can have this on the ground or you can have this on a rack, slightly elevated above the floor. And essentially what you're going to be doing is you're going to have your knees slightly bent for the movement, and you are going to have the bar below you. And what you want to think about while you have your knees bent is to have your core engaged, your chest is going to be upright, and your shoulders are going to be retracted back. So instead of feel like they're leaning forward, right? We're not the Hunchback of Notre Dame here. We're going to put them back. We're going to retract back. So you're engaging your shoulders and those back muscles. So you're going to put those shoulders back, and then you're going to basically row the bar towards your belly button, then continue it back down for your repetitions. If you're finding this helpful, be sure to hit that thumbs up button so I know you want to see more videos like this. Okay, the next one is called a deadlift, and the deadlift is personally my absolute favorite compound exercise. Now, deadlifts are a little bit more technical than some of these other ones. There's a lot of movement to it. So what I would suggest that you start is to grab a broom in your house and just practice this form before trying it in the gym so that you can really feel confident going into the gym and actually doing a deadlift. One of the really awesome things about deadlifts is that they use a large variety of your muscle groups from head to toe. So it works your core muscles, your back, it works your hamstrings, your glutes, works your arms, it works a lot of different muscle groups all in one. For this exercise with the barbell, you can have it on the ground with the weights on it, or you can have it slightly elevated again on a rack and then grab it that way to do the deadlift. What you want for this exercise is you want your feet about hip width apart, and for this movement you're also going to want the barbell to be about midline of your foot. So basically when you're looking down at your feet, so you're going to see the barbell and your feet, you want the barbell about midline of your foot. Now with a deadlift, you can have an overhand grip of both of your hands, or what you can do with this exercise is you can also have one underhand and overhand. If you're going to do an underhand and overhand, as much as you can, try to reverse that for each hand back and forth, that you're not dominant on one side. Otherwise, keep the overhand grip if you're doing it that way. Now, when you're doing a deadlift, one of the most important things that you need to remember is to keep the bar as close to your shins as possible, pretty much rubbing up against them when you're doing the movement. And that is because that's going to prevent any injury. If you have that bar far away from your legs, that can contribute to an injury to your back. Now when you're doing this movement, you also need to make sure that you have a neutral spine, which means that you're going to keep your head in alignment with your spine. So you're not bent over and looking one way or the other. Okay, that can cause injury. You want to make sure that your head is in alignment with your spine and that it's neutral. You're not looking up or down. You're just looking where the movement is guiding your eyes. And when you grab the bar, okay, you're going to have that neutral spine. You're going to be bent over. You're going to have your shoulders retracted like in the barbell row. So retract the shoulder blades, and then you're going to make sure that your chest is a little bit upright and you are intact and strong, and your core is engaged. When you bring the bar up in the deadlift movement, okay, you're going to be bringing it up. You're going to want that bar really, really close to your shins. And then once it passes your knee, that's when you're going to start a hip hinge movement. So you're bent over initially, and then once it passes your knees, you're going to do that hip hinge movement, and then you're going to be in basically a standing position, and you're going to reverse that movement and continue for your deadlift. Okay, and one of the last compound movements that we're going to get into is called a military press. press. You can do this with a barbell, or if you're at Planet Fitness, you could be doing this on the Smith Backer machine, so you could be doing it like that. You could also do this with dumbbells as well. Okay, now for this position, the most important thing is that your bench is in a upright position so that it is supporting your back. You're basically going to be sitting up in a bench. And then for this movement, your palms are also going to be forward. So you're going to be gripping the barbell or those dumbbells, and they're going to be forward for you. And basically your arms in this movement are going to be perpendicular to the floor. So you're going to move it up and then down and continue that movement. Now those are the most important compound exercises I want you to start doing in the gym. Now I'm going to go through a couple of isolated exercises that are also important, but if you want future videos on other isolated exercises, please let me know and I'll definitely do a future video on that as well. One of them that we mentioned earlier is called a bicep curl, and for a bicep curl, essentially you're just isolating that bicep muscle. So you're doing that curl with a dumbbell, or you might be using a machine to do this as well. So you're doing that, and you're curling it up and reversing that movement back down. Again, primarily just working those biceps. Now another isolated movement that I really like to do in my routine is called a tricep extension. You can do this in a variety of different ways. You can do this on the cable machine with one of the rope attachments. You can also do this with just a dumbbell overhead of you as well. And essentially in this movement, again, you're going to be isolating a specific muscle. So in this case and for this exercise, you're just going to be isolating those triceps. And another one of my favorite isolated movements to do is called a hip thrust. And this is going to primarily focus on those glute muscles that you have. So in this instance, you can use just a bench in your gym and a barbell. So you could do that variation. You could also do this on a Smith machine rack if you're at a gym that only has those. Or if your gym has the actual machine that is a hip thrust machine, you could also use that. Now, the most important thing for this exercise for hip thrusts is to make sure that you have something that is supporting your hips, or that area where you're putting the barbell or the dumbbell, because it's a very precious area. You just want to make sure that you're protecting that because of those bones where your hips are. You want to really protect that. So either have a hip thrust pad, or you could use the padding or the cushion that wraps around the barbell, or you could also use a couple of different foam mats in your gym that you would usually lay on if you're doing an ab exercise or stretching out. So you could also use that to protect yourself. But essentially in a hip thrust, what you're doing is you're driving those glutes upward, and you are strengthening those glute muscles in that exercise. Okay, now that we kind of talked about some of those exercises, compound, a few of those isolated movements, let's talk a little bit more about reps and sets to start doing. Now, a good rep range to start in is between 8 to 12 reps. That's a pretty typical range for muscle hypertrophy. Muscle hypertrophy just means you're increasing the size of that muscle. So if you're looking to build muscle, that's exactly what you want to do. So primarily try to stay in that 8 to 12 range initially when you get started. A good range of sets to do throughout a given week is around 15 to 20 for muscle hypertrophy. So stay within that throughout the whole week. Since I recommended doing full body workouts, you're not going to be doing 15 to 20 sets for each muscle group throughout that one workout. You're going to be spreading that throughout the whole week. So for instance, let's say you're trying to hit quads, right? Okay, well, we know that we're doing squats as one of those movements. So let's say you did 5, 5, and 5. So that would be 15. Or maybe you're doing 6, 6, and 6, right? So you're spreading that out throughout the week to hit that set range. Now, as you're doing these full body workouts and you're in the gym more often, you're going to start noticing, as you're consistent with that it's getting a little bit easier. Now, this is where a foundation principle in exercise comes into play, which is called progressive overload. And I'm going to just call this the golden rule. Okay, this is something that I want you to remember throughout your whole fitness journey. Basically, in this principle, what you have to do is that you have to continually challenge your muscles so that you keep making progress. Now, there's a couple different ways to do that. You can do that by adjusting the amount of time that your muscles are under tension. So you could do that. You could do sets. You could change the amount of reps that you're doing. So you're changing volume, or you're changing something that it adds another element of challenge to your muscles so that you do end up hitting that muscle hypertrophy, you're progressively overloading your muscles so that you get better and that you get stronger. So for example, let's say 1 week you're deadlifting 150 pounds and that gets really easy. So one way that you could use that golden rule or the progressive overload principle is to add some weight onto the bar. So adding weight onto the bar will help to challenge your muscles. So maybe instead of 150 pounds last week that you were doing, let's say you bumped it up to 160, and now you're trying to do that set with that weight. Okay, now that we've gone through all the exercises, amounts of sets and reps and everything to do, let's start actually putting this into practice with your lifestyle. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to look at your calendar and I want you to look at which days throughout the week that you would actually be able to go to the gym or do home workouts and can do it consistently. So, for you, it might be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it might be Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, but whatever it is, look at your calendar and make a plan for yourself so you can get started. Now, the thing with weightlifting that I need you to keep in mind as you're doing this and you're planning out your days on when you're going to go to the gym is to have the expectation that seeing results from this really does take time. Building muscle takes a lot of time, so you're not going to see just an overnight success and that you look much stronger and that you see your muscles in a week. That's not going to happen. Have the expectation that it's going to take about 2 to 3 months to really see that difference in your muscle and your strength and everything that you've been really working hard for in the gym. If you want to see some of my weight loss tips, be sure to check out this next video. Thank you for watching and be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on the